I think so. My clock is showing 104. I'm gonna go ahead and just
Go ben.
yeah.
Sorry.
If we could ask the participants to just mute your own microphones during the our presentation. We are recording and we will edit out the dead space, and we also should be able to exclude any view of the participants. So please welcome, we want to welcome you to our second best practices webinar being put on by Advocates Protecting Children. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating parents, mentors who want the best for children, as well as churches, schools, and other organizations who are trying to protect children against the predatory practices of gender ideology. Um, and I'm Dr. Michelle Cretella. I have training in pediatrics. Our speaker today is Maria Keffler. She has a PhD in educational psychology.
No. MSCD,
Oh,
MSCD,
I'm sorry,
master's.
a master's. I'm sorry, a master's in education psychology. She's also an author, speaker, researcher, um, and our other board member, Eileen Christian, is an attorney. All three of us are mothers, and we just welcome you to today's presentation about protecting children against gender ideology.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm going to see if I can bring myself up for just a minute. There. Hi, I'm Maria. Thank you so much for coming today. Let me just go ahead and launch off with my presentation. I'm going to share my screen and pull up my PowerPoint. Oh, here we go. Play from current slide. How's that look? Can everybody see that all right? Okay, I'm gonna
Looks
assume,
beautiful.
Michelle, I'm gonna let you tell me if anything's going wrong. It looks like it's okay to me. So welcome to Protecting Kids from Gender Ideology. As Dr. Cotella said, I've been working on this for a while. This was never what I wanted to do with this part of my life, was engage with this issue. But I think most of us who are involved in this did not intend to engage with this issue. I'm a teacher, and I've been shocked at what I've seen happening in the schools with how kids have been really preyed upon and convinced via influencers, via schools, via social media and smartphones to believe that they are something that they really are not. So I'm going to launch off my talk with just a short, I think this is about 30 or 40-second video. Now, I'm really pleased to be able to say that, whoops, no, that things are a little different now than they have been. We're seeing a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of people who are fighting this we're feeling more hopeful than we have in a while. But this map that's on the screen right now, we made this a few years ago, kind of showing the web of where gender ideology is being pushed into the world. And it really is a nefarious web with schools kind of right at the center of it. But you can see it's coming down from public, from like federal programs. National Education Association is the largest teachers union in the United States. They're absolutely all on board. Human Rights Campaign. That sounds like such a great organization. Who's not for human rights, right? But that's the funding and lobby arm of the LGBT and TQ machine. Oh, no, we're not going yet. My computer said get off that, but I'm not ready to get off of this yet. Social media is a huge hub. As you saw in the video, you may have seen on the cell phone, that was Jeffrey Marsh. He is an influencer. He dresses as a woman, presents sort of as a woman, and tells children to cut off their parents if their parents don't agree with this. It's coming a lot out of universities and academia too. I remember when I was in university, we had a thing called women's studies, and women's studies really don't exist anymore. They've now become gender studies, and it's all about pushing this ideology. Gender clinics up in the upper left corner are making money hand over fist. A lot of people ask me, why are all of these organizations pushing this? What's the benefit? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's coming out of, again, academia, out of the pharmaceutical companies, the cosmetic surgeons who are doing this are just making money hand over fist. They're advertising to kids on social media, in the schools, GSA clubs, gender sexuality allies clubs. That's really boots on the ground for what is occult indoctrination. Our kids need help. This is what's happening to kids today. They're getting it at school. They're learning about it on social media. Peer-led sex ed. I first heard about this a few years ago. This is where older kids come into younger students' classes, health classes, gym classes. In one case here in Arlington, I'm in Arlington, Virginia, an older student actually came into a HILT class, HILT, which is high impact language training. That's a class for kids generally who are newly immigrated and they have very low English skills. So they take these classes to try to get their English skills up. A student actually came in and spoke in Spanish to those kids about sex ed. Completely inappropriate, especially for the content of the class. But they call it peer-led sex ed. And I remember reading about this and seeing it. I'm like, what does this remind me of? What does this remind me of? It's peer-to-peer sales. If you've ever been invited to somebody's house, you have a friend and they're selling Tupperware or candles or cleaning products, you get invited to your friend's house, they have snacks or a meal, drinks, socializing, and then somebody gets up and does a sales presentation, and you feel like you need to buy something because your friend has invited you. It's leveraging social relationships to get you to buy things. And this is what peer-led sex ed is in the public schools. It's leveraging social relationships. And remember, I said it's usually older kids coming in and teaching younger kids. So you've got freshmen and sophomores in a health class, and a senior comes in and is allowed to talk about sex and gender. Those younger kids are not going to argue with that older kid. First of all, the teacher invited that older kid, so the kid has the authority to be there, and the child is older. You would never, stand up. Most kids are not going to be able to stand up against that. Libraries, I talked to some librarians who say, the first 25% of the catalogs that they get for new books are just filled with all of this gender and sex propaganda. Equality clubs, which are LGBT and TQ promotion groups, send boxes of books to school libraries. Teachers put these books in their classrooms. We pulled our kids from public school about 5 years ago now. But even about 2 years after we pulled, I realized I had this book on my shelf I was unfamiliar with. I picked it up. It had my daughter's former English teacher's name written across the pages on the side. And it was it was a transgender promotion novel. It was a book. I mean, it was a terrible book. I started reading it. I'm like, it's not even written well. But teachers put these in their classrooms. They assign them and they're on the classroom shelves. As I said earlier, cosmetic surgeons, drug companies advertise directly to children on social media. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, they have rules in place for what you can show children on TV and movies, on the radio, but social media is completely unregulated. It is the Wild West. Anybody can do anything they want there. That's where kids are spending the bulk of their time is on social media. So you've got a child who feels like he doesn't fit in with other people. So he gets on social media and says, I just don't fit in with anybody. What's wrong with me? There's a host of influencers all ready to say, oh, you're probably the wrong gender. You're probably not actually a boy. Have you ever considered that? Parents are being vilified as abusers across the country. I talked to a number of parents who Child Protective Services was called on them. They lost their child for not being willing to affirm an alternate gender identity. Entertainment industry. I think I have a slide about this a little bit later in the presentation, but Blue's Clues was one of my kids' favorite shows. It was so sweet, this little blue dog and his person, and it's geared to like 3, 4, and 5-year olds. And a few years ago, it had a drag queen hosting it, and it had a pride parade, and one of the little animals in the parade had scars from a double mastectomy, which is colloquially known as top surgery, which is a double mastectomy of a girl's healthy breasts because she thinks that she's actually a boy. Universities are also holding bias boards and pushing gender ideology across campus. A bias board is someone hears something they don't like. So a student says, I don't really buy into gender ideology. That student can be reported to the bias board and have to come in front of them and explain why they're so bigoted and hateful. It's unbelievable this is happening in the United States. But the topic of today's talk really is how to protect kids from all of this. You may be feeling a little overwhelmed, like, oh, what can we do with all of these forces that are against our kids? But it comes down to good parenting, and it comes down to strengthening your relationship with your child. I was speaking at a church up in Pennsylvania at a conference, and at first I was asked to talk about how do you get your child out of the gender cult. That's the topic of my book. But then the organizer said, hey, would you also talk about how to prevent kids from getting sucked into this in the first place? And at first I thought, oh, that's twice as much material. How am I going to do this? But as I started thinking about it, I realized it's the same process. It's the same thing. Sort out what's happening or what happened, whether your child's gotten sucked in already or has not yet gotten sucked in. Know what's going on. Know who is teaching your child at school. Know what's happening in your child's clubs and activities. See what your child is encountering online. I strongly recommend kids under 18 don't have social media. If they do, mom and dad need to have the passwords and logins for all of it. You need to go in occasionally and see what's going on. And your child should know that. Your child should know, I can pop in and look at your social media anytime I want to. Your child doesn't have a right to that kind of privacy that you don't get to know what's going on. With my own kids, until they turned 18, everything that came to their email accounts got copied to my email. That was one of the best things that we did. I saw some things happening and some things coming in that I was able to um, get ahead of before it got away from me. So I really recommend that. Just go into their email account and forward. And again, my kids knew, they knew. Mom sees everything that comes into my account. That way, if you've got somebody reaching out to them in a way you would rather they not, you know about it. Cut off as many unhealthy influences as you can and establish healthy influences. It used to be when we sent our kids out into the world, they were meeting people who mostly agreed with what we thought. 30 years ago, when our parents sent us out the door, the other adults around us believed a lot of the same things our parents did. That is not the case today, especially if you have a conservative or a Christian worldview. May very well be that the people outside your home are teaching exactly the opposite of what you believe. Strengthen your relationship with your child. Again, this is just good parenting, but you want your child to have a connection with you, even as the child approaches and enters adolescence, puberty, the early and middle teen years. That's when they start leaving the den and moving out into the forest. And it seems like they just want to cut ties with mom and dad. Harry, just get out of my business. Why are you always in my business? But they really do still need and want you. So stay with them. Don't just let them uh, pretend like they are cutting off the relationship with you. They still very much need you. And engage your child's critical thinking abilities everywhere, all the time, in everything. And we'll talk briefly about all of these. So that first one, where is that child being influenced? What's going on at school, social media, all those places that I talked about? What relatives does the child have? Is there anybody who's trying to trans that kid behind your back? Anybody who's supporting this ideology that you need to know about? And then think about what might make a child susceptible to this influence. We're living in a broken world. We all have damage. Not one of us is perfectly healthy. We've all had some form of trauma, sadness, a weakness, a disability. There's something about all of us that can make us susceptible to influences that are not healthy. Some kids are more at risk than others, it seems, to getting sucked into gender ideology. Autism is a huge one. Some estimates are putting trans-identified kids at like 65, 70% on the autism spectrum or showing autistic traits. There's a number of reasons for that. I won't go off into those unless somebody wants me to talk about it later. But it's definitely worth being aware. If you have a spectrumy kid, he or she is definitely at risk for getting sucked into this. Younger kids who don't have those critical thinking skills yet may get sucked into this easily. It's why they're going after younger and younger kids who don't really have the ability to understand and parse out what's true and what's not. If a child's been through a trauma, had a divorce, a death in the family, anything like that, anything that can make the child feel like something is wrong with his or her life and be looking for a fix. I'm suffering this pain. I need something to fix it. That's what we all do. When we're feeling bad, sad, hurt, wounded, we'd like to find a quick fix. As we get older, we realize there's not always quick fixes, but kids especially, they're looking for that silver bullet, that thing that's going to make it better. And trans comes in and says, oh, this is everything that's wrong with you. And when you transition to the other sex, everything is going to be better. And that's a lie. Again, cut off those unhealthy influences and establish healthy ones. As much as possible, once you've figured out who you can't trust with your child, try to sever those relationships. If it costs, pulling from public school, it's worth doing it because you're talking about your child's health and your child's future. If they're babysitting for somebody who is giving them trans novels every time they go over, maybe you need to come up with something else for that child to do to make money rather than going over and babysitting there. But when you find people who agree with you that gender ideology is harmful, hold on to those people with both hands. You want to create a wall around your child where you keep the healthy influences on the inside and the unhealthy ones on the outside. Three quick ways to sever a relationship with someone. You can exert authority, where you just say, you're done there. You're not gonna see that person. You're not going. That may be what pulling from public school is. You know what? Your dad and I, your mom and I have talked. We don't feel like this is a healthy place for you. We're gonna pull you out. The younger your child is, the easier that is to do. It is the thing that's going to upset your child the most. Nobody likes being told, I'm making a decision for you. So if you can avoid that option, I would suggest avoiding it, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to exert your authority as a parent. Another way is to distract the child. So when our kids were toddlers and they would not stop trying to get a hold of the chocolate cake that was on the counter, you can move the chocolate cake or you can distract the child with something else. hey, let's go to the park. Or if they're trying to get grandma's vase off the mantle, hey, let's go play a card game. You can do the same thing no matter what the age the child is. If you've got that child who's babysitting for the pro-trans family every Friday night, maybe Uncle John, who has a business, could call the child and say, hey, I really need help with filing. Are you available on Friday nights that you could come and help me file? And maybe Uncle Joe pays a little better than the babysitter does. The best scenario, especially with older kids, is if you can lead the child to sever the relationship. If you can talk about things, maybe get the child to see that maybe this relationship isn't the most healthy. When one of my kids was, gosh, how old was she? She was probably 14 or 15. I got copied on an email that she got from someone, a woman in our community, an adult, inviting her to come and play Dungeons and Dragons. And apparently they had this adult and teenager Dungeons and Dragons game going, and she invited my daughter. And I was very unnerved by this because anytime an adult reaches out to a child circumventing that child's parents, there's something wrong there. Either that adult just really is not courteous or doesn't understand basic, you don't reach out to a young child, you reach out to the parent first. But I didn't want to just say no because we'd had to exert our authority with some things with her recently. So we started talking about it. And I said, how'd this person get your email anyway? And she said that a friend of hers had given the email to this woman. I said, did you give your friend permission? She said, no. I said, oh, that's bad juju. You never give away someone's contact info without their permission, right? She's like, yeah, I wish she hadn't done that. I said, yeah. And my daughter said, well, can I play? I'm like, do you want to play? She's like, well, I don't know. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I think I'd like to try. I said, well, would you want to play it with Dad and me? And she's like, no, I don't want to play board games with you and Dad. I was like, yeah, isn't it a little weird that teenagers are playing with their parents in this group? And she goes, oh, yeah, that is kind of weird. Well, I gave her a couple of days to think about it, and she came back and she's like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. That just seems really weird. And I was really pleased that she made that decision. If she had said, yeah, I think I do want to go, then maybe her dad and I would have had to talk about it and say, well, okay, but we're going to come too. Or maybe exert our authority and just say, no, we don't think that's a great thing. But it was great that she was able to make that decision on her own. Strengthen your relationship with your child, develop your relationship skills, improve your communication skills, and spend time together. If your child's already trans-identified, as much as you want to talk them out of it, it's actually best if you avoid discussing it as much as you can. People who have come out of it, kids who were trans-identified when they were teenagers or young adults, and they come out of it and they realize that it was not right. They often say it's all mom and dad ever would talk about. I wish they wouldn't have focused on it so much. I get it when your child's doing something harmful, like you want to do what you can to just get them out of it. But if you can build up your relationship by doing things that have nothing with to do with transgenderism, that's actually helping to pull them away from the cult. The cult wants them to be completely ensconced in transgenderism. That's all they think about. That's all they talk about. That's all that ever revolves around them. So you want to be like, hey, remember when we used to go fishing? Let's go fishing. We haven't done that in a while. And get them doing things that don't have anything to do with transgenderism. With the email that we sent out later or earlier today with the link for this webinar, we included a questionnaire that covers 11 communication skills. And here they are. It's a questionnaire you can give your child or anyone that you're having a bit of a difficult relationship with and just say, hey, I want to do better at relating to you and I want to do better at communicating. Could you rate me on these 11 things? And it's a 0 to 10 or a 1 to 10. Like, do I ask you questions about yourself? Do I criticize you frequently? When I've got a problem, do I use I statements instead of you statements? So like, I'm really hurt by what happened yesterday rather than you really hurt me yesterday. It's better to always use the I statements. I'm feeling really scared about what's happening rather than you're really upsetting me. Do I take feedback with humility? When you tell me that I did something that hurt you, do I receive that well? Um, am I present when we're talking, or is my mind elsewhere? Anyway, there's 11 things there, and if you ask your child or someone else to rate you on them, you may be very surprised. None of us are perfect at these. None of these do everything well all the time, and we all have room for improvement. Okay, and the last part of this is engaging your child's critical thinking skills. You want your child to recognize when he or she hears something that is wrong. Do you know how they train bank employees to recognize counterfeit bills? They don't show them, oh, here's 700 different ways that people can counterfeit bills. No, what they do is they show them real bills. They show them all the facets of a real $20 bill. Look, it's got this color ink. The paper has this texture to it. It's got this bar in it. The font is this way. And they examine those bills really well. So when they see one that doesn't fit what it's supposed to look like, they can recognize it. And that's what we need to do too. We need to be teaching our kids the truth so that when they hear the lies, they can go, oh, that's not right. Something about that is off. Whoops. Feelings versus reasoning. A lot of people feel like they have to, or they've been told they have to validate everything a child says. Um, or they're being hateful. But there's a difference between validating someone's feelings and agreeing with their reasoning. Feelings are never wrong. Feelings are just flags that tell us, hey, this doesn't feel good. Need to do something about this. Or, ooh, I really like this. Let's get some more of this. But the reasoning of why am I feeling this way, we can make mistakes. So if I saw my husband, we're both out and about on our days. I walk into a restaurant, I see him hugging another woman. Oh, what's my feeling gonna do? I'm gonna have a feeling of like some jealousy, some anger, some like, what in the world is going on? I'm seeing my husband hugging this other woman. Feelings are not wrong. I'm just feeling as a result of what I'm seeing. But then when I go over and I confront him and he introduces me to a cousin who I have not met before, he's like, this is my cousin. She lives across the country. I had no idea she was in town. Oh, my feelings were not necessarily wrong, but I was interpreting the situation wrong. My reasoning was flawed. He's not hugging another woman, he's hugging his cousin. Um, one girl told her mom, I hate my body. I don't fit in. I don't have enough friends. Everything's wrong. It means I'm transgender. And the mom, I loved what she said. She said, you know what? I understand all the things that you're feeling, and I get that those hurt. Yep, I get that it hurts that you don't feel like you fit in with other people. I get feeling on the outside never feels good. Yep, I get that this is a painful thing. I believe that you are actually feeling everything you're feeling, but I don't think it means you're transgender. Said, I think it means you're autistic with adolescent. You're an adolescent who has a touch of autism. And the mom gave this analogy. She said, it's like somebody from Wisconsin telling her friends, oh, I feel terrible. My body aches and I've got a fever and I'm like I feel terrible. I've got a headache. And all the friends are going, "Oh, dude, you've got malaria. That's totally malaria." And the girl laughed and she's like, no, that's not malaria, that's the flu. And the mom said, right, someone in Wisconsin with all of those feelings probably doesn't have malaria. They probably have the flu. Just like I don't think you're transgender. I think you have the actual pain of going through adolescence with a little bit of autism. So always validate people's feelings. Oh, I get why you're feeling that way. I understand why you would feel that way. Yeah, that's really painful, but don't validate their faulty reasoning. And ask questions. That's always a great strategy. If you're struggling with how to respond to any situation, ask genuine questions. Wow, tell me more about why you feel this way. When did this start happening? Questions are always a good way, especially to buy time if you're just not sure what to do or to say. So if your child asks to speak with you privately and says, Mom or Dad, I'm transgender, that's a great time to start asking some questions. You're probably going to feel panicked. You're probably going to be like, whoa, I got to get ahead of this. I got to make this stop. What in the world? Don't freak out. That's something else we hear from people who've come out of it is the calmer mom and dad were, the easier it was to deal with it. And also, the trans rights people are saying if your mom and dad freak out, it shows that they actually hate you and they only love you if you are what they want you to be. That's such a lie. It's such a nefarious lie. But as much as you can, try to stay calm. This is good advice when you're dealing with anyone, but especially with teenagers. The more you can just be calm and cool and not act freaked out or too surprised, the better it'll go. But you can just ask questions. Wow, this is out of the blue. Tell me more, why you're feeling this way and start asking questions. Another thing about asking questions, there's so many contradictions in the trans narrative that you will very soon start uncovering where your child says one thing like, oh yeah, gender is totally fluid. And you can go back and forth and you can be all girl or all boy or anywhere in between. It's on a spectrum. Oh, well, if it's fluid and it can change at any point, why would we ever medicalize it? Because you could decide tomorrow that you actually want to be something else, right? And those contradictions very quickly bring to surface a lot of the lies in the trans ideology. So I often call this a cult, and I just want to show you this video about
Our
cults.
leaders were unreliable. Remember, we had poached them from the counseling office, right? They were not the most emotionally stable students on campus. Actually, they were the least emotionally stable students on campus.
For real. And I love you very much. And you are safe here with me.
So, cults do 8 things to get and retain followers, and trans hits every single one of them. I'm not trying to be sensational when I call it a cult. It actually is a cult. So just in review, whether your kids have trans
Maria,
identified already or
Maria,
not. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
Nope.
The slide we are seeing says whether children have trans identified already or not. I
Yep.
think
I just wanted to really
wanted
quick
to, my
review.
apologies. I
No,
thought
no,
you
no.
needed it.
That's okay. I know it's the same slide as
Okay.
earlier. I just wanted to kind of wrap up with a quick review. It's all about good parenting. So figure out what's happening to your kids, what weaknesses they might have that might lead them into this. Cut off as many unhealthy influences you can and establish healthy ones. Keep the relationship open with your child. Try to strengthen that and ask questions and engage your child's critical thinking skills. Those are just the top 4 things I can recommend. And here are some resources. We've got lots of resources on our website. That's the first one here, advocatesprotectingchildren.org. And we're here to help with whatever we can. So that's my whole presentation. I'm going to stop my share. And I don't know, Michelle, if I should stay pinned or how we want to do the Q&A. What do you think?
I'm fine having you stay pinned.
Okay.
If anyone has questions for Maria, we're asking you to type them into the chat, and I will read them out loud for everyone to hear, so that Maria can answer them individually. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box.
I went through that really quickly. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. I'm sorry if I went really fast. I'm happy to review anything if anybody's like, you talked so fast, I couldn't even hear it. I'll take this moment while we're waiting, if anybody's typing, to just put in a plug for our next Best Practices webinar. Father Paul Sullins, he's of the Ruth Institute, and I forget he has a number of connections. He's a Catholic priest who's done a lot of work studying um, sexuality, gender, and he's going to be doing two presentations for us in March, two webinars, one on March 1st and one on March 28th, I believe. And the first one is on the church and gender ideology, and the second one is on homosexuality and gender. So we hope you'll be able to come and see those as well.
Okay, so Maria, we do have a couple questions. My daughter, 13, just told me she wants to know what it feels like to be a boy. So how, what would your advice be?
Yeah,
13-year-old. Yeah,
that's a
I
great
want to know
question.
what
A
it feels like to be a
13-year-old
boy. Mhm.
wants to know what it feels like to be a boy. This is a good place for questions. I think one of the first things I would affirm, I'm like, oh, that's
Oh,
really an interesting.
clarification. She wants to be referred to as a boy in school.
Oh, that's a different question. That's a different question. Okay. Um, Start by asking questions. Why do you want this? And I do want to just real quick address if somebody says, I want to know what it feels like to be the opposite sex, or a lot of times kids will say, I just know inside that I'm the opposite sex. I feel like the opposite sex. That's often the rationale for wanting to trans. And that's a good place to ask, how do you know what it feels like to be, if you're a girl, so I'm a girl, how would I ever know what it feels like to be a man? I've never experienced life from any perspective except my own. I don't know what it feels like to be Dr. Cortella. I don't know what it feels like to be my daughter. Angelina Jolie and I are both women. I am pretty sure I have no idea what it feels like to live Angelina Jolie's life because I've only ever experienced things from my own perspective. So I would ask that, like, why do you think that you're not a girl? What evidence is there for that? And hold on to the truth. We know that, and Dr. Cotella, you can back me up if I'm right on this, that our sex is encoded into every cell of our body. Am I right about that?
Correct. Every single cell in our body that has a nucleus has the same sex determining genes. So yeah,
Mhm.
it is not possible. It is scientifically impossible to have the brain of a boy and the body of a girl. So that's complete science fiction.
Yeah. And when doctors say that they can change you into the opposite sex, it's not true. What happens is a lot of Frankenstein butchery, and kids end up, I'm probably going further afield with this question than was intended, but nobody changes sex. It just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. What you end up with is a medicalized body that needs to have pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life in order
Right.
to survive.
Yes. And so so I'm going to pivot to a very easy question. Is there a reliable source about the multi-million-dollar industry? Jennifer Bielek, Bilek, is a radical feminist author who has done the best work connecting the dots to the radical billionaires funding the gender ideology. If you go to Amazon and in Amazon search for Jennifer Bielek, her most recent book is the best summary of the billionaires involved, and she connects transgenderism to transhumanism, which is the broader revolution. Um, I'm going to return to the initial question, which is really seeking help with your 13-year-old daughter right now. And so, as Maria is saying, the most important thing is to, number one, ask questions such as, beginning with why do you want to be referred to as a boy? So other questions, will follow from what she tells you. Um, but asking questions are important, even and even before the questions, perhaps it's super important to affirm, I love you,
Mhm.
and you're my daughter. I'm not going to abandon you. We're going to work through this. We're going to work through these questions together. Affirm, as Maria said earlier, affirm feelings. Also affirm your daughter's solid character traits. I love that you are compassionate. I love that you are empathic. Um, if she reveals to you negative emotions, like as Maria was saying, I feel so alien, my body feels so strange to me, or I feel so depressed. I feel it is so helpful for children to hear, especially when it's a daughter talking to her mom. Oh, I remember when I was 12, when I was 13. You're absolutely right. It is it's so challenging. I hated my body. Or I hate if you can empathize to that, that's going to go a long way to maintaining the connection. Another you've added that she has said she doesn't like her breasts. Um, if you can um relate to that, or say, I remember when my breasts first started developing, um it, I always felt like people were, maybe she feels like everyone's noticing her, looking at her. Does she feel, so asking questions, do you feel it? How you notice you don't like your breasts? Can you tell me more? Can you tell me more? What is it that, are people staring at you? What's going on? Let's see if we can figure out how to help. Now, you also asked, or what to do with the friends who are affirming her. That tells me that this is more than her just saying, well, it tells me that
It's a social
it's a
contagion as
social,
well.
yeah, she has identified already. If she's already with friends who are affirming her and classmates who are affirming her, um, as a pediatrician, as a mother, if this were my child, I would be working to pull her out of that school.
Mhm.
And um, Maria,
Mhm.
maybe I'm thinking we can post, would you be able to post our email, the Advocates Protecting Children email address? Because we may be able to send Michaela more personalized resources.
Yeah, we're advocates protecting children at gmail.com. Um, Also, the resource that we attached with the email that we sent out this morning has Common Sense Care transcripts. Erin Brewer and I did a 35 video series on all different aspects of dealing with this as a parent. And in there, there is a role play that we did for the coming out speech, if your child gives you this coming out speech. And yeah, I just want to back up everything Dr. Cortella said. Again, she's a pediatrician. She's been dealing with this and dealing with kids for a very long time. So those are all excellent guidance on how to cope with this.
And I
I
agree with Maria. Not only the transcript, so the transcript was attached to the email for this webinar for Common Sense Care. If you go to the Advocates Protecting Children.org, go to our resource tab. There are videos, Common Sense Care videos, and actually watch the video with the role play. That will be helpful.
And I
And
think that's even titled a coming out role play or something like that. It's pretty easy to find.
and Eileen Christian,
Hi
our
there.
co-founder. Yep, please. You have helpful comments. Go
Not
right
not a
ahead.
co-founder, but a board member now. But Michaela, and for all of you, I just wanted to jump in and say a few things. I have a daughter who's now in her young 20s who has, and I say nothing without her consent. She is very happy for me to jump in where I can to help. She, although probably at 15, not 13, was identifying as a boy. Luckily, she was in a school, a Christian school, who worked with her dad and myself to only speak the truth, and they only affirmed the truth. The teachers there were very helpful in this situation, even though her friends were affirming. You know, they were mumbling, or to each other at the in the cafeteria at lunch. So I just want to remind you that it is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And I'm a couple of years now distant from the sleepless nights and the many, many sleepless nights that her dad and I suffered through all of this. And I can look at this and say, I got nowhere with the yelling and screaming matches that we had. And she would agree with that 100%. In our effort to try to speak only the truth, it's exasperating. It's exasperating, but she's a child probably on the spectrum. A young adult now on the spectrum, and she really came to understand and the the illogic of her arguments to us. And that's in some odd way the beauty of the Asperger's mind, or the autistic mind, is that they do see in black and white and ultimately do understand logic, and the lack of logic that goes into the arguments of these kids that are identifying this way. So I would also recommend Maria's book, Desist, Detrans and Detox. That was a lifeline to me when I really needed that. And the ability to understand that I most needed to maintain connection with her. Despite my yelling and screaming, which were not as awful as I'm making them sound. I mean, they were fewer and far between than I make them sound. But that connection that we maintained, she always knew that we loved her. She always knew that she wasn't going to get anything from us other than the truth. And I think in the end, that really was very helpful. Also, what was really helpful was pulling her out of the social media. We did take her phone away. That was really, really hard as parents, and she was very, very sneaky for a long time, until she kind of came to love her new situation of life was easier for her without her phone and without the living the lie, and so ultimately she desisted. So
Yeah, so there are some good points that Michaela is sharing, is that her daughter says she knows she is a girl and even agrees that males should not be allowed in female sports. And Michaela's sense is that she's being pressured to identify this way by friends. So again, Michaela, this is just a webinar to give an overview of an outline of steps that can be taken, but we cannot be, it's not a personal therapeutic relationship. So we do have on our website resources to where you can search for therapists local to you who would help you in your particular personal situation. So again, with, it sounds like, oh, and you're in Sweden. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The concepts, however, of maintaining that Ms. Keffler went over in her PowerPoint are critical. It sounds as though you have done a tremendous job as a mom because your daughter is, first of all, sharing this with you. And she's shared with you the good aspects that she knows biology can't change. So that is huge. So now your focus, and ideally, if her dad is involved in and on the same page as you, that would be the ideal. The two of you would work together with your daughter to change her school and or friend group. That's, again, ideally you would have a local therapist dedicated to first do no harm to help guide you through this.
Okay, any other questions that we can?
Oh, please do not, and do not apologize. Oh my goodness, this is why we're here. We want people to know that you're not alone. The one other, in addition to our site, which has videos that parents may find helpful, also visit segm.org, segm.org. They are an international organization of both therapists and physicians dealing with this issue. Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine.
I just put that in the chat,
Perfect.
segm.org.
Yeah. No,
We've got, it's about 5 till 2.
5 till
We've
2.
got about
Yeah.
5 more minutes
So
before we've been an hour. Anything else we can talk about before we close today? I'm going to assume I hit all the points really, really well.
You definitely did, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. We will put the recording for this on our website. We're doing that with all of our best practices webinars. They will be on the website. We'll make sure that none of the participants are seen on that video, but it will be there if you want to consult it later.
there are also, your daughter might be impacted by some detransitioner stories. She might be open to that since she's open to the truth about biology and sex not being able to be changed. She might be open to seeing that you, as the person who loves her most of all, truly are trying to protect her from physical and emotional harm, which many young women sadly have fallen prey to. Mm. I know. You're a good mom. You are a very good mother. Know that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to go through, but as Eileen said, people are getting through it. They are getting their kids back, and you can too.
Yeah, a marathon, not a sprint, but it can be done, and our resources will help you.
All right. I hope everybody will be able to come back for Father Sullen's again, March 1st and March 29th. Those are on our website. It's under What's Happening, and then under that tab is Best Practices Webinars. So you can register for them there. We'll also start putting them out on social media. So thank you so much for coming, Dr. Cortella and Eileen. Thank you for all that you guys did as well and contributed, and we will hope to see everybody next time.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone.
Dr. Cortelli, you'll have to end the recording since
Yes,
you
ma'am.
started it.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.